The war began on a quiet morning. The stars above the council world of HFY burned pale and calm, pretending they didn't notice the fleets gathering in orbit. Below them, alien delegates shouted inside a hall made of glass and silver. They had come to discuss the human problem. Humans had arrived in the galaxy only 50 years ago, and somehow, in that short time, they'd upset every balance of power. They were smaller, weaker, and annoyingly confident. When the Council tried to put them under control, humans laughed and sent a single message: try it. Now, fleets of Virexian cruisers, Sorn war towers, and mech bots formed a wall around the human colonies. Every race expected an easy victory. No one feared Earth. They feared each other more. Then came the report that made the chamber fall silent. A scout ship near the human border had been destroyed by something small, fast, and extremely angry. The transmission lasted 2 seconds, enough to show a flash of metal claws and a human voice shouting, "Get 'em, buddy!" The council paused. "Buddy?" someone asked. No one answered. The invasion began anyway. The first strike hit a colony named Luna Outpost 7. Thousands of alien troops dropped through burning skies, marching across ruined metal plains. They found almost nothing. Empty. Shelters, cold fires, and strange claw marks on the walls. A soldier named Vrixa, leader of the HUMANX platoon, pushed deeper into the tunnels. She had fought on 20 worlds and never felt fear, but the air here was wrong. Thick, heavy, watching her. Her armor sensors caught movement behind her. She turned fast, weapon ready. Something small and dark darted out of the shadows, moving faster than her eyes could track. It wasn't human. It wasn't machine. It was fur, teeth, rage in motion. The creature hit the first soldier like a storm. Armor tore open. Screams filled the tunnel. Vrixa fired her plasma rifle, but the thing didn't stop. It roared like thunder in a cave, then vanished again. By the time backup arrived, 10 soldiers were down. The creature crouched on top of a fallen trooper staring at them. Beside it stood a human, helmet cracked, blood on his sleeve, smiling like war was just another sport. "This," he said quietly, patting the beast's neck, "is a honey badger. You should have stayed in orbit." The alien troops froze. The beast growled, and even the plasma lights flickered. Vrixa couldn't breathe. She'd seen war beasts. Before, genetically engineered predators bred by entire civilizations, but this one looked natural, real, wild. The human whistled, and the creature dropped the body and padded to his side. "Name's Sergeant Hale," he said. "Buddy here doesn't like being woken up early." Vrixa lowered her rifle. Her translator failed to find words strong enough for what she felt. Fear wasn't supposed to exist in an Apex warrior. But as Buddy's eyes locked on her, she realized the stories about humans being reckless, unpredictable monsters were true. Hale tilted his head, listening to his comms. Somewhere above, a human. Carrier broke through the clouds, dropping fire and light across the alien camps. The Council's perfect war plan collapsed in 10 minutes. Vrixa stumbled back, whispering into her comm, "Retreat! Now!" But Hale just looked up at the sky and smiled again. "Unexpected war, huh?" he said. "You started it. We'll finish it." Buddy let out a low growl, a sound that seemed too large for its body. Then the honey badger charged into the smoke again, and the aliens learned what kind of nightmare Earth had unleashed. The council chamber was supposed to be silent, sacred, and calm. Now it sounded like a zoo on fire. Ambassadors shouted over each other, voices layered with fear and disbelief. Screens around the hall replayed the same short footage, grainy, chaotic, and terrifying. A small black and white creature ripping through armored soldiers. A human walking beside it as calmly as if he were strolling through a park. The caption on the feed read, "Transmission from Luna Outpost. 742 confirmed dead. Unknown human biological weapon observed." The Varexian speaker slammed a clawed hand on the table. That thing killed our elite soldiers in less than 3 minutes. It ignored plasma, fire, and acid. From across the hall, a Sorn general hissed. Then you should have sent better troops. The humans have always exaggerated. No animal could survive that environment. The feed replayed the part where the honey badger bit through a Varexian's armor plate. The general went silent. In the corner, a gray-skinned scientist from the mech consortium tapped her metal fingers together. This creature, it's not enhanced. It's not cybernetic. The scans show it's purely organic. That means humans have weaponized nature, another delegate interrupted. The word spread like a curse. Weaponized nature. For the first time in years, the Council couldn't agree on what to do. Some wanted to destroy Earth completely. Others warned that might provoke retaliation far worse than the first attack. Everyone remembered what had happened to the Arvak Dominion, the last empire that tried to enslave humans. Their worlds still glowed red from orbit. The council chair, an ancient being made of light and bone, raised a trembling hand. We underestimated them. The humans use things we can't predict. They don't fight for dominance. They fight for survival. That is what makes them dangerous. The room fell silent. Even the translators hesitated to speak the next words. Prepare for emergency session. We must discuss the Apex Protocol. Every delegate froze. The Apex Protocol was a last resort. Defense. Something meant for cosmic-level threats like black hole entities or rogue AI gods. Using it against a human was unthinkable. Meanwhile, far from the council chambers, Sergeant Hale and his unit regrouped in the ruins of Outpost 7. Smoke curled into the gray sky. Hale patched up his arm with a strip of fabric while Buddy the honey badger dug something out of a broken drone, an alien power cell. Don't eat that, Hale muttered. Buddy ignored him, tossing the cell aside. A private nearby watched the creature with wide eyes. Sir, what is that thing? Hale smirked. A problem solver. Earth doesn't have monsters. We make friends with them. The radio crackled again. Static. Then a voice. This is Command. We've intercepted council chatter. They're calling it the Apex Beast. They're afraid, Sergeant, really afraid. Hale wiped dust off his helmet. Good. Maybe now they'll listen. But deep down, he knew they wouldn't. The council didn't listen. They controlled. They would respond the only way they knew how, with bigger guns. Back on Varex Prime, a massive fleet was already mobilizing. Thousands of warships left orbit, their engines glowing like blue suns. The Council declared a state of interstellar emergency. Every broadcast repeated the same warning. All species are advised to avoid human sectors. The apex threat is active. In one of the quiet corners of the chamber, the mech scientist whispered. To her assistant, if one human and one animal caused this much damage, what happens when Earth decides to fight for real? No one had the answer. But across the stars, humans were already preparing it. Sergeant Hale stood with Buddy on a ridge overlooking the burning plains. The air shimmered with heat and ash. You hear that, pal? He said softly. They're scared of you. Buddy gave a deep growl that almost sounded like laughter. Hale smiled faintly. Good. Let's keep it that way. Far away in the void between systems, the Council's flagship turned toward Earth. Its weapons began to charge. The war everyone feared, the real war, had just begun. The Council's warships gathered like a storm around Earth's orbit. Thousands of engines burned blue across the void, forming a ring of death meant to remind humanity who ruled the stars. But Earth didn't flinch. Not this time. From the cold dark above the moon, hidden inside the shadow of a crater, human fleets waited. The ships weren't massive like the alien ones. They looked smaller, older, patchwork even. Yet every hull bore scars of battles that should have destroyed them, and didn't. Inside the flagship Resolute, Sergeant Hale leaned over the holo map. "They're coming in tight," said Commander Voss, her eyes tired but sharp. "They think they're hunting," Hale smirked. "Let them think that." Beside him, Buddy growled softly, restless. The honey badger hated waiting more than anything. Hale scratched behind its ear. "Patience, pal. You'll get your turn." The plan wasn't complicated. Humans didn't believe in complicated. They believed in making it hurt. When the Council fleet entered range, Earth's satellites went dark. Every signal jammed, every scanner blinded. The aliens thought humans had gone silent in fear. In reality, they were counting heartbeats. Then the first strike hit. A swarm of human drones, tiny as insects, shot from the moon's shadow. Each carried an EMP core. They slipped through the gaps of alien shields, detonating inside reactors, engines, and cockpits. Within minutes, the perfect circle of warships turned into chaos. Ships colliding, lights flickering, panic flooding through comms. Inside one of the alien flagships, the Virexian speaker screamed, "They've hacked our targeting systems! How? They're using analog tech! It shouldn't even work!" That was the human secret. While the rest of the galaxy evolved beyond metal and wire, humans had never forgotten simple. And simple couldn't be jammed. On the ground, alien troops stormed Earth's defense zones expecting resistance. Instead, they found traps, deep tunnels, decoys, and sound lures. The humans fought dirty like ghosts in the ruins. Every time an alien thought they'd cornered a soldier, the ground exploded beneath them, and sometimes something worse than a soldier appeared. A honey badger. A dozen of them. Maybe more. Someone had cloned Buddy. The creatures tore through mechs, bit into armor, and vanished into smoke. They weren't soldiers, they were chaos-given claws. Each one was trained to follow a single-voice command. Protect. On the Resolute, Voss turned to Hale. "The Council's losing control. They're ordering full retreat." Hale nodded slowly. "They came to teach us a lesson. Guess they just learned one instead." But victory wasn't what he wanted. Hale knew this wasn't over. The Council would return, angrier, larger, desperate to erase the humiliation. He looked out the viewport where alien ships burned in the void. "We showed them what humans do when pushed," he muttered. "Next time we show them what happens when we lead." Buddy sat beside him, licking blood off its claws. Its eyes reflected the fire outside, calm, fearless. In the Council chamber, far away, the panic turned to dread. Reports arrived by the minute. Fleets destroyed, soldiers missing, planets in revolt. Entire species were whispering one dangerous thing. Maybe the Council wasn't invincible. The chair, trembling with light and fear, finally spoke. "We cannot defeat them. They are not logical. They are not predictable. They fight like animals." "No," said the mech scientist quietly. "They fight like humans." A silence heavier than gravity filled the hall, and somewhere across the stars, Sergeant Hale smiled faintly, unaware his words from years ago had become a legend told in alien languages. "Don't start a fight you can't finish with a human watching." The Council's pride didn't die easily. Their fleets had been wrecked, their troops scattered, but humiliation burned hotter than plasma fire. So they gathered what remained, 3 super fleets, armed with weapons built from the bones of dead stars and prepared to strike again. They called it Operation Cleanse. On the human side, there was no celebration. No one was cheering. Everyone knew this wasn't victory. It was a pause before the next storm. In a hangar buried deep beneath Earth's crust, Sergeant Hale stood with Commander Voss, watching engineers reload ships that looked older than they were alive. The humans didn't have the largest fleet, but they had something the Council didn't. Desperation sharpened into brilliance. "Council's pushing propaganda," Voss said. "They're calling us an infestation," Hale smirked. "Then we'll be the infestation they can't get rid of." Buddy, resting nearby, growled as if in agreement. The honey badger had become more than a pet. It was a symbol. The creature had appeared on banners, holo posters, even broadcast icons across colonies. A reminder of what made humans different. They didn't back down, and they didn't tame what they loved. While Earth fortified, the Council met in secret. The Apex Protocol was no longer just a discussion. It was in motion. They would unleash something ancient, something buried under a dead moon. The Eclipser. A weapon so destructive it erased gravity itself. It was supposed to be their trump card. But deep inside the Council's own research ships, human hackers were already inside their systems. The moment the weapon activated, the code flipped. Instead of targeting Earth, the Eclipser's coordinates changed to the Council's central fleet. The explosion was silent in space, but its light burned across galaxies. 1 billion tons of ship metal turned to dust in seconds. In the chaos, Commander Voss received a transmission. "Council fleet destroyed by their own weapon." Hale didn't smile. No such thing as their own weapon anymore. Still, the humans paid for every small win. Entire colonies burned. Thousands of civilians died. And when the flames cleared, the survivors still stood. That was the breaking point, not for humans, but for the galaxy watching. Species that had followed the Council for centuries began to defect. Some sent supplies. Others sent messages of quiet respect. The phrase human resolve spread across alien networks like a virus of hope. On Varex Prime, the Council chair watched the rebellion unfold. "We are losing control," it whispered. "Fear has changed sides." The mech scientist, now head of security, replied softly, "Perhaps it never belonged to us." Meanwhile, Hale's unit regrouped in orbit around Mars. The soldiers were exhausted, armor scarred, eyes hollow. Hale stood by the viewport, staring at the red planet below. "We can't keep this up," said one of his men. "No," Hale agreed, "but they can't either." Buddy let out a low rumble, sensing Hale's exhaustion. The soldier crouched beside him, pressing a hand against the creature's shoulder. "They think strength comes from power," he muttered. "They never learned it comes from loyalty." Moments later, the comms crackled again. "Sergeant, incoming signal." "Not Council, civilian network." The voice that followed was alien, trembling but sincere. "This is the Kalari envoy. We wish to speak peace." For the first time since the war began, Hale's expression softened. "Peace?" "Yes," the voice replied. "The galaxy sees now. Humans don't conquer. They survive. Maybe we can too." Hale leaned back, glancing at Voss. "Looks like the Council broke itself." Voss nodded slowly. "Every empire does, eventually." The signal cut out, and Hale looked toward the stars. Somewhere out there, the Council was still regrouping, still angry, still dangerous. But something had shifted. The universe had stopped laughing at humans and started fearing them. Buddy growled quietly, eyes reflecting distant fires. Hale stood tall beside him. "This isn't the end," he said. "It's the part where they start running." The galaxy had changed. Whispers turned to stories, stories turned to fear, and fear turned into something far more dangerous: respect. For the first time in centuries, the Council's laws were ignored openly. Entire systems shut off their transmitters, replacing the Council emblem with a new symbol, a clawed paw over a human star. They called it the Terran Pact. In the ruins of the old war front, humans weren't hiding anymore. They were rebuilding faster than anyone expected. Factories ran night and day, not powered by alien tech, but by human stubbornness. They melted wreckage into armor, weaponized junk into fleets. Sergeant Hale stood on the deck of the newly finished Vigilant, watching the first joint convoy leave orbit. Humans and defected aliens, former enemies, flying under one banner. The idea still felt unreal. Commander Voss joined him. 3 Kalari ships, 2 Sorn freighters, and a Varex cruiser. You ever think we'd see that lineup? Hale shook his head. Didn't think I'd live long enough to see anyone volunteer to stand next to us. She gave a dry laugh. They're not standing next to us, Hale. They're standing behind us. Big difference. He knew she was right. Humanity had gone from being the Council's wild card to its biggest nightmare. Not through conquest, not through power, but through refusal to break. Every world that joined the pact did so because humans didn't promise safety. They promised freedom. Down in the hangar, Buddy paced restlessly. The original honey badger, scarred, older now, but no less fierce, had become something of a living legend. Soldiers treated it like a guardian spirit. Engineers painted its image on ship hulls for luck. When Hale walked past, Buddy perked up. Hale scratched behind its ear. "You started all this, you know that?" Buddy snorted and went back to pacing. Outside, the void was alive with motion. New human cruisers left orbit every hour. The Council's remaining fleets had retreated to the core worlds, licking their wounds. But in those dark halls, anger was brewing again. They couldn't tolerate humans leading anything. To them, humanity was chaos wrapped in skin. So they plotted. In the council chamber, what was left of the leadership argued endlessly. The chair's light was dimmer now, flickering with exhaustion. The Terran Pact spreads like infection. Every world that joins weakens our control. A Varex commander hissed. "Then we end the infection. Strike Earth again. This time, with everything." The mech scientist interrupted, voice cold and sharp. "You tried everything. You lost everything. Maybe the problem isn't them." Her words echoed through the chamber. No one dared reply. Back on Vigilant, Voss read the intercepted chatter aloud. "They're fracturing. Half want peace, half want revenge." Hale leaned on the railing. "They're afraid of becoming irrelevant. That's what scares bullies most. Being ignored." She smiled faintly. "So what do we do?" Hale looked out at the convoy, engines glowing against the stars. "We do what we always do. We move forward." And move they did. The first Terran Pact colony was founded on an old council mining world. Humans worked beside aliens for the first time, teaching them how to live without orders, without fear. Children of 3 species played. Under the same sky, their laughter echoing through cities once built for war. But peace never came easy. Council loyalists attacked the colony's perimeter. Hale and Buddy led the counter. The aliens fought alongside them, shoulder to shoulder, not because they were forced, but because they wanted to. When the battle ended, a Kalari soldier saluted Hale. "You humans are insane," he said, "but maybe that's what the galaxy needs." Hale smirked. "Insanity works if it keeps you alive." As the smoke cleared, the human flag rose over the colony's central tower, not as a symbol of conquest, but of endurance. The galaxy had watched humanity survive the impossible. Now it was watching them lead. And somewhere in the deep cold where the Council rebuilt its final weapon, another war was already whispering its name. The war should have ended long ago, but the Council couldn't accept it. They'd ruled the stars for millennia. Then a handful of humans, a few beasts, and a bad attitude had torn that order apart. Pride was a wound they couldn't heal, so they did what the desperate always do. They built a monster. They called it the Apex Construct, a living weapon made from the DNA of every predator the galaxy feared. It was part machine, part nightmare, and fully loyal to the Council. Its first act was to annihilate 3 rebel systems in under an hour. Entire planets went dark. When the news reached the Terran Pact, the silence in the command hall was heavier than gravity. Commander Voss stood before the holomap, her voice steady. "They're not sending a fleet this time. They're sending a god." Hale crossed his arms. "Then we kill a god." Beside him, Buddy growled softly. Even the veterans who'd stopped flinching at explosions stepped back when that sound filled the room. Hale placed a hand on the honey badger's back. "You ready, pal?" Buddy didn't need words. His eyes said it all. The construct appeared near the edge of the Sol system, massive, glowing with energy, its roar echoing through vacuum like the sound of dying stars. The Council broadcast one message to the entire galaxy. Humanity's defiance ends today. Earth's response came from Hale himself. "You've mistaken defiance for survival. Let's fix that." The battle began. Human fleets surged forward, tiny compared to the colossal creature. The construct's energy pulse shredded entire squadrons, turning ships into dust. But the humans didn't retreat, they adapted. They flew through debris, using destroyed ships as shields, firing everything they had at the creature's core. Onboard Vigilant, alarms screamed. Voss shouted, "Shields down to 30%! Keep us in range!" Hale ordered. "That thing's got one brain. Let's break it!" The construct lunged, claws the size of cities reaching for the fleet. Then something small and dark streaked across its hull. Buddy, wearing a reinforced exosuit and carrying a fusion charge strapped to his back. The room froze. "Is that—" "Yeah," Hale said quietly. "That's him." Buddy landed on the construct's armored spine, digging in with claws that cut through alloy. The creature roared, shaking space itself, but the honey badger didn't stop. He clawed, bit, tore, and ripped his way toward the glowing energy core. Every alien watching from across the galaxy saw something they didn't understand. An animal, smaller than their soldiers, defying the universe itself. When Buddy reached the core, Hale's voice came through the comm. "Hey, little guy, make it count." The construct's body ignited with blue fire as the fusion charge detonated. Light swallowed the stars. For one long, endless moment, the galaxy held its breath, then silence. When the light faded, the construct was gone. What remained was a field of glowing dust, drifting across the void like fireflies. The Vigilant floated at the edge of the blast, hull cracked but alive. Inside, Hale stood at the viewport, staring at the fading light. His voice was low. "You did it, buddy." A whisper of static answered from the comms. Then silence again. Later, the Terran Pact held its first true gathering. Aliens of every kind stood beside humans, not as allies of convenience but as equals. The Council, shattered and disgraced, was dissolved by its own members. For the first time in recorded history, the galaxy was free from fear. Voss gave the opening speech. Her words were simple. "We didn't win because we were stronger. We won because we refused to kneel." Hale stood quietly at the edge of the crowd, wearing the old, torn patch from his armor, a black and white paw print, the symbol of Buddy, the creature that taught the stars what humanity really meant. Later, under a quiet sky, he buried that patch in a small field on Mars. "Rest easy, little warrior," he said. "You made them remember us." Behind him, a young cadet approached nervously. "Sir, the Council's remnants are asking for negotiations. What do we tell them?" Hale turned, a small, tired smile on his face. "Tell them humanity doesn't negotiate with fear. We teach it manners." The cadet nodded, almost smiling back. As Hale walked away, the wind stirred red dust across the field, forming patterns like claw marks. Maybe it was the breeze, maybe something else, but for a heartbeat it almost sounded like a low growl of approval. The galaxy had crowned many champions, but none like this. A soldier and a small creature from a blue planet had changed everything. And in every shadowed corner of the stars, whenever something roared too loud, someone would whisper the same warning. "Careful. Humans have honey badgers.